All right, so what I'm going to be covering today is the overview is how stress works in the body, improving emotional regulation, heart rate variability. There's supposed to be some handouts for you too, breath, and perspective. So if we were looking at our slides, you'd see some pretty little things. It's okay, we don't have to worry about it. So what all of us have in common is that we want to live. And my assumption is that we want to be able to live the best life possible. Well, we've got this. And we start out as strangers in our OM lifeboat. So you'll hear this theme of a lifeboat going all the way through the presentation. And here we are. So we know our scan schedule is preset by our medical team, and they are like our Coast Guard. My deal is, being class 2 myself, is that when I'm going for the scans, my anxiety starts building because I don't know what the results are going to be. So that creates wear and tear on my immune system, which I don't want that occurring because I need my immune system to protect my health, not my thoughts in my head. So what can we do? Lucky me, I know how. Oh, okay. All right, so what am I pushing? Right. So I plug in my books. Here's our team. Here's our lifeboat and Coast Guard. We're all tied together. Thanks so much, Wendy. So basically, the enhancing our skills, one of the things, when I was a child, my family moved to an island off of St. Petersburg, Florida. And one of the things that was a requirement of my parents, that because there were 3 little kids, my little brother 3 years old, my little sister 4 years old, and I was 6 and a half, was that we all had to improve our swimming skills to satisfy our curiosity, because little kids are very curious and they go places where there's a lot of water and it's very dangerous, and they didn't want us kids dying. So basically that was the piece, was we had to learn how to upgrade our swimming skills with our Russian immigrant named George to teach us how to swim better so that we would stay alive. So that's what I'm wanting us to do, is to think about enhancing our skills. A lot of us already know how to take care of ourselves. We've heard presentations like this, but now we want to start upgrading those skills. So I'm going to give you technical information, not real heavy, but I hope to be able to explain it in a user-friendly way. So the acute stress reaction. So a lot of us, when we're diagnosed, the acute stress reaction is basically our whole system, like you heard the gentleman right before us say, we brace. And one of the things about bracing is that I stick my neck out, which is a physiological response so that I can see better, right? And so I've been trying to learn how to pull my neck back so that I can reduce that tension that I don't need to be carrying all the time. So the stress reaction, our body reacts with the fear. Some of us go numb, some of us shut down, and some of us become tearful. Each one of us are wired uniquely in our own way, but our midbrain, where the amygdala is. So our amygdala is only about the size of our fingernail, the little one. It's in the center of our brain. The medulla is the back part of the brain that is responsible for our breathing, our heart rate, and our blood pressure. Those are constantly cued to respond as if the fight and flight is actually going on right now. So when we're starting to activate ourselves, we go into that state, our body starts reacting as if the lion is actually there. But in fact, it's not. And we start to build a pattern that begins to change our brain. So this is going to go back to what Dr. Arnett said about our accountability to ourselves. Well, they did turn the heat back up, didn't they? So what begins to happen as we start reacting as if we're in fear all the time, this starts playing with our immune system. It raises our blood pressure. We start to have problems with metabolizing sugar. I have problems with that. I don't have, thank God, I don't have diabetes, but I'm very sensitive to sugar, so I don't utilize it. But I also start becoming emotionally reactive. And one of the problems about being emotionally reactive is that I'm telling my amygdala over and over and over that there's really something more to be afraid of, and I've got to stop that as a habitual response. Because what will begin to happen is, and we've read this amongst each other, is that I will start creating a mood disorder, depression, the blues, or an anxiety disorder. And we really don't want that adding up to us, for that constant stress. We don't want to tip the scale, so to speak. Okay, so the chronic stress, where it goes from there, here's our amygdala. I'm sorry, right here. This is the thalamus where we create memories. Our frontal lobes. This frontal lobes piece is important to remember because when we undergo stress so often, what will begin to happen is that the fight-flight part, the amygdala, becomes overly sensitive and it's reacting all the time. What will also begin to happen, and this is what we really don't want to happen, is that this begins to thin. So the prefrontal cortex, this whole area up here of our brain, for the left side and the right side, is responsible for our ability to be able to think clearly. And my whole goal with all of us, at least my goal with myself, is that when I'm ready to listen to my doctor about my results of my scan, I cannot afford to be emotionally reactive. I really want to be able to think and feel at the same time. So I want to be able to have techniques under my belt already that I'm instituting on a regular basis so that I can calm this stuff down. So I noticed it when I visited, I was here 2 days before our conference started, and I went to see a girlfriend that she and I went through a training together, and she would always drive in LA because why would I want to drive in LA? And I would always have these reactions. Oh, you got so close. Oh, watch out for that car. And yeah. And what I noticed this time is that even though the cars were getting close or she was slowing down on the brakes, my body wasn't reacting anymore because I've been using these practicing skills on an ongoing basis because I really believe in them. So what will also begin to happen is, I'm probably out of order on these slides. Okay, so the psychosocial route affects our perception. So the idea of what I start cueing into, so remember I was saying about the traffic and the car, I can also start misreading social cues that we read from each other to know if I'm doing a good enough job. Like you're nodding your head and you've got a smile on your face, so you're letting me know that, oh, she's nice and she'll be able to give me something I can work with. But if I misread, if I have a propensity to misread cues, I can think that someone's upset with me. So I told this story last year when how many, just so raise of hands, how many people got to watch the video of me doing the tools and techniques that Melody put online before our conference? Nobody watched it.
On Thursday?
No, it was a couple of weeks ago, and it's been on a couple of different times. Well, it'll be available. We'll make sure it's available. But I'm going to review some of this. So I'm very glad I got the response I did because I'm going to remind us or refresh our memory of what I talked about last year. And I'll do it very quickly. It's all written in the book. So, okay. So the story I told last year was getting ready. My husband and I were packing the car to get ready. I drive 3 hours to go get my scans. So we're packing the car, and I saw my neighbor Mike, and he kind of nodded at me, and I had been annoyed because the dog next door, his dog, kept us awake that night, the night before, and I thought I got this scowl on my face. And I'm very sensitive to my relationships with people, especially in that window right before the scans. I pick up stuff that's just not real. And so I kept worrying about it. And so I said, no, I'm not going to get myself all activated. I'm not going to activate this amygdala again. So what I decided to do was go down to our produce store. I bought him a gallon of French vanilla ice cream and a watermelon. And I took it over to him. And he was like, what is this for? What do we do? And I said, well, the deal is that I'm right before my scans. I'm very sensitive. And I thought maybe I gave you a dirty look. And I didn't want any upset between us. And so they thought they were scoring, but what the point of the story is what I did was figure out how to make the thinking about it stop. And that's about forgiveness. The other piece here is ruminating. So if I had kept thinking about it over and over and over, that's rumination. It's a clinical sign. It's very common when we're living in the world that we're living in. The what ifs. I'm getting chills. So the what ifs, the idea, so let's say that I gave that dirty look tonight, and if I had kept thinking about it over and over and over, ruminating, that's building neural networks in my brain that say that I actually did it, whether I did or I didn't. And I will believe that more than the actual event itself. Now, I know none of you have ever had that experience. So using that line of thought, I'm going to use that idea that if we're practicing self-help skills over and over and over, we're building neural networks that we will go to when we're in trouble. So that'll go back to what Doug said at the very beginning of our whole conference, that when he was in real trouble and he was looking at, I don't know, I think most of you went to his talk, and he was looking at the situation, he was able to step back and pull on the issues around gratitude, because that helped him stop it. So someone else asked me a little bit earlier about this.
Oh, it's okay, I got it.
Got it. Thanks, Wendy. Asked about thought stopping. So thought stopping is if I'm starting to build that story. I really did give him a turn. I know I did. And this is what's going to happen. So if I'm 5 to 8 to 10 to 24 thoughts into my story that I'm going to believe more than what the reality is, as soon as I start noticing I'm going down that road, I need to stop. That's a thought stop. So that the next time, an hour later, whatever, that I'm going down that road, I stop the story at thought 4. That's the thought stopping. Eventually, the sooner I stop it, then I won't have the story anymore. So it's a good thing to learn how to do to help yourself stop. Yes?
How do you stop, though, in your mind? Just say,
I don't allow myself to go there.
Just acknowledge you're doing it
and then stop. And okay, so I see what your question is. So what do I replace it with? Because as in nature, the void. Okay, so I can replace it with an image. The beautiful sea that we've got out here with all the light on it. And if I put 5 senses on it, you know, the smell and the touch and the, you know, how the water feels and all this kind of stuff, it will help stabilize that. You can do a prayer. I have a prayer. I've used it, it's a singing prayer. I've used it for decades. And I use it on a regular basis so that it's always there in the background, that I can pull it forth. So it's a prayer, it's an image, a word. So one time I got into this cycle where I needed to make it stop, and I didn't know about all these other ways to do the thought stopping. And the original way in the 60s was to put a rubber band on your wrist and snap it. That hurts. I wasn't like that. That hurts too much. It does, yeah, to pain. So I've gone, okay, so the perception of stress, this can happen whether you're a woman or a man, a gender, so it's a gender issue, social class issue, a racial issue. We're all sensitive to all of this, especially our culture. So the good thing about stopping the ruminating and stopping the thought stuff is that you're automatically dropping your blood pressure. So once again, we're not going to be getting ourselves activated here.
Just move your finger on the mouse pad, and it should, or press once on it.
we go. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so improving emotional regulation.
I'm gonna fix it.
There's not stopping. Be blessed.
Yes.
So, do you want me to use the mic?
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so improving emotional regulation. We will get faster recovery the more that we reduce that. Caution, watch out. Okay, so that's not my dogs, but it is the whole issue around upgrading our skills. And I already asked the question about last year's video. Okay, so very quickly what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, I'm going to teach kind of a very quick way to do this, what grounding is. So I'm going to combine a couple of different techniques to be able to make an easy answer for what grounding is. So me pushing my feet in the ground, on the ground right now, is a form of grounding. I think of it kind of like the grounding wire that we all have at the base of our house that we don't want to pull away because it grounds the rest of our house. We're not having electrical problems. Being able to, you know how Dr. Arnett was talking about how the energy builds up in the head? And if I refocus my energy and drop my energy from my head down to my feet, the more I focus on details about, is it the front of my feet I feel, is it the heels, is it the left side, is it the right side? What I'm using is my prefrontal cortex. So that will help you in a situation to keep your prefrontal, it's all about keeping your prefrontal cortex online and not getting overly emotional. Scrunching the toes. Okay, I have to put the mic down because I can't do both at the same time. So if I had my feet up here instead of my hands, I would scrunch my toes, left, right, left, right. It doesn't matter if it's left and right or right and left. That doesn't matter. It's the point that I'm activating my occipital lobes that will pull on my frontal lobes. So I can do this in my doctor's meeting. I can do it in the middle of this presentation right now. I've taught all the cops. They're now teaching the adolescents in our community how to do this so that they're not getting overwhelmed by their feelings. So it's basically just this, and that's all it is. So doing that back and forth will help. And these are all written in that book. So progressive muscle relaxation is PMR. Is there anyone in here that doesn't know what progressive muscle relaxation is? Okay, so I'll do a quick one. It's if I tighten up my feet, so what I'm going to do is go from my feet all the way up to my head. And so I tighten up my muscles, and then I relax. And then I tighten them up, and I relax. And the whole point is to get, it's kind of like squeezing so that I'm getting the muscles to release the toxins, that lactic acid that's building up from my stress or my hormones in my body, you know, because I'm under stress. So I start with my feet, and I tighten up my feet, and I relax. I can then tighten up my calves. I do it twice for every area. I can tighten up my calves and relax. Tighten them up and relax. I can tighten up my thighs and relax. It's a little bit longer. And tighten them up and relax. Tighten up the buttocks and relax. Tighten them up and relax. The abdominal muscles, tighten them up, relax, tighten them up, relax. The lower back, find out what muscles you know and what you don't. And then my upper back, and relax, tighten them up, and relax. Front of the chest, deltoids, it's not the deltoids, pecs. And relax, tighten them up, and relax. Upper arm, relax. Upper arm, relax. This part of the arm as if I was playing tennis, and relax. Tighten them up, and relax. Fists, and relax. Fists, and relax. You can do the throat. Relax. Tighten them up, and relax. The face, and relax. Tighten it up, and relax. And the children love to wiggle their ears. And they think it's the hottest thing ever that they can wiggle their ears and I can't. And then you can do the whole body. Tighten the whole thing up and relax. And what will happen is you're actually moving your blood, moving the toxins through the system. I do it in standing in line when I'm waiting for the bank, to be able to go to the teller, whatever. But being able to do that, I'm telling my body that I'm trying to take care of it. So the window of tolerance. If we had two straight lines, and you just draw it across and leave about 2 or 3 inches in between. I don't know how to draw it on this Google Docs. This is the first time I've ever used Google Docs. So you draw 2 straight lines across. The upper line, you put sympathetic nervous system, so SNS. On the bottom line, you put PSNS, which is parasympathetic nervous system. And then you take your pencil and you go jagged up and down, going above the lines and below the lines, but sometimes inside, because the whole goal is being able to keep yourself in the window of arousal or the window of tolerance in between those 2 lines. So the sympathetic nervous system, when you're out of the window of arousal, your heart is racing, your mouth is drying up, you might have a need to pee. I've seen people actually defecate because what your body's trying to do, if it's in mortal danger, is evacuate everything. What the goal, besides being in the window of arousal, is that we want to get the parasympathetic nervous system to rest and digest, to overtake the out-of-control sympathetic nervous system. So the idea that we get too far up or too far below, that's not the problem. It's recognizing that I'm getting out of the window and bring myself back in. So the ways that I can do it are being able to scrunch my toes will bring me back in. If I were to, why don't you just kind of notice your vision right now and then take a moment and we're going to look around the room and I'm going to ask you to look around the room. You name the object in your head, you don't have to say it out loud, but look for 3 blue things. Okay, now look around the room and find 2 red things. And the last one is find 1 green thing. Okay, so now notice your vision. Take a look. What you should be able to see is that your vision will be a little bit sharper and there'll be a little more acuity to it. And why that is because I counted down 3, 2, 1. I also organized red color, green color, blue color. These are the things that we learned when we were in 3rd grade, was organizing things. The back side of your brain is the occipital lobes, and it's the only part of the brain that's not connected to the amygdala. So it will automatically pull on your frontal lobes. And you can do it wherever it is that you need to kind of, okay, I'm getting out of that window and I need to get myself back in. The really good thing is that every time, so let's say somebody's window is really narrow. Every time that you do it, you recognize, oh, I'm out of the window, I need to get back in, you will start widening it. And so what I said earlier about the traffic, and that I noticed that 8 years later, my traffic patterns don't bother me like they used to, it's because my window has expanded a lot more. And that's through practice. Thank you. Perfect. So there's my sympathetic nervous system, a lion, a fire alarm. The parasympathetic is all about rest and digest. We're reducing arousal and reactivity. We're increasing our energy. We're managing our thoughts and feelings. We're able to think clearly, and we can make good decisions. So when we walk ourselves along the food bar, we're going to make good decisions because we're in the window of arousal. If I'm finding myself picking up things to have for lunch that's not something I would normally do, that's a clue. I'm probably outside of the window. And we all have our own patterns. My energy level is to get very activated. My husband's energy level is to get really low energy. And he's still working, so when he comes home on Saturday, he's channel surfing. You know, that's how he kind of lets down. Thank you so much for coming up. Okay, so do we want to take 2 minutes? I'd like everybody to just take 2 minutes and stand up, if you're able to, and just notice your breath. So where the lungs are literally attached to up by our clavicles. When people are in situations, you can stay seated. When people are in situations where they're very anxious, what we tend to do is breathe only from this area instead of breathing all the way down to our diaphragm and our belly. So that whole thing about take a deep breath, and I would like you all to take a deep breath, feel the expansion of your rib cage, feel in the back. All of this is you're wanting this all filled up. You're wanting it to go all the way down, you know, and then release. Okay, one more time, take a minute. Fill it all the way up. Hold it and let it go. One more time, take a deep breath. Hold it and release. Okay, everybody have a seat. Thank you. Part of that was my selfish need to just calm myself down. So the good thing about being able to do these kinds of different exercises, I'm going to go over 2 or 3 more breathing techniques. We want to be able to calm ourselves down at will. One of the things I didn't say on an earlier slide, but I'm not going to ask you to go look for it. There was a 3-month study that showed, remember I said about the thinning of the prefrontal cortex when the amygdala keeps getting overly activated? They did a 3-month rehab for a small group of people, and they found that they were able to start reversing the thinning of the prefrontal cortex. So this stuff really does work. We also know, as I said yesterday, that meditators happen to have thicker prefrontal cortex. So I already asked about, so we should be moving up, developing stronger tools, takes practice. Heart rate variability. Okay, so the whole piece around heart rate variability, as you can see, this is an image of an EKG. This is the area that I'm referring to. That's the length of the variability between our hearts. We have a regular beat of the heart. The whole goal in doing the exercise, you'll notice the first lag, they don't really go together. I did the best I could to find an EKG. So when I go to the doctor and he's feeling for my pulse, he spends several minutes just with my pulse. And what he's listening for with his fingers is how long of a rate the lag is between heartbeats. And how we can lengthen that is through exercise and breathing techniques. And we want to be able to do that because it's making our hearts stronger. So the heart rate variability, I thought, was a pretty important piece. Very important cascade. Okay, so when we have the line,
Sorry, go back.
no, you're good. Go ahead. So this is basically a lopsided way to look at the window of arousal. You've got the rest and digest, you've got the overexcitement, the sympathetic nervous system and calming down, and it's to optimize our immune system. Next. Okay, so when we've been in the animal world, if we were animals and we got, I'm going to go get that rabbit and I'm going to eat that rabbit, the first thing, if I'm a male or female, I'm going to want to have sex because I can drain that overactivation off. I'm going to want to digest after I've been eating my food now, and I'm going to want to rest. So we are not animals. We go to the next slide because I think it's kind of gross. We can do the exercise and the breath work. The exercise, when we get very, very activated, and there's really no reason to be activated, like I'm overreacting to the cars coming and they're coming too close, it takes 5 to 10 times longer than if I had gone out to run a race for my immune system to calm down, my neurological system to calm down. So I think that's pretty important stuff. If I'm actually doing that to myself for no reason, and I have no way to get my body to be able to express that activation. So other ways, this is just from emergency work, other ways to be able to know that if you got really, really upset, and you don't have the opportunity to go out and work out or, go be with other people that can help you calm down. Other ways is you really want to watch what you're eating, make it very easy to digest, things that do not have high fat. So the cheeseburger is out. You want easy to digest food that is some kind of protein, light carbohydrates. You don't want a whole bunch of pastas so that your system's trying to overactivate that. Definitely you want to take a shower because what you're wanting to do is scrub off the cortisol off your skin. Once you're starting to calm down, that cortisol starts getting released. So like, this is probably too personal, but that dress I was wearing yesterday, I thought I was going to wear it today. And I went to smell the dress and I was like, oh no, we're not wearing that dress today. Well, that's the being scared and being in front of other people. So what does my body do? It overactivates, right? And it leaves a smell. Well, that tells me, A, well, I'm not going to wear the dress, but B, it also tells me how activated I was. Okay, so this is the section on breath, focused, calm, and non-reactive. Just trying to check my slides here. Okay, so on the breath, we already talked about breathing too shallow here. Most people that come into my office, the first thing I start working with them is notice what you're doing with your breath. One of the experiments to think about drawing your attention to your own breath cycle is that most of us pay attention to our inhalation rather than our exhalation. A way to be able to calm your system is to start paying attention to your exhalation first rather than your inhalation. Because then what you're doing is reversing the cycle of where you're breathing. Okay, so a trick, I like formulas. I like to be able to remember things more easily. So when I notice that I'm too activated, the easiest thing for me to do is take a deep breath, hold it for a count of 3, and blow it out for a count 3 times longer. So if I take a deep breath, hold, and blow it out. And do that several times. What will happen is that I will override my sympathetic nervous system being out of control. That's like the whole thing of, when your heart rate starts beating way too fast, I have to slow my breathing down. And that will slow my heart down. Okay. Yes, we do. Thank you. So we just did that one. Okay, so the 4, 7, 8. So I've got this is another one. So this is taking a deep breath for a count of 4. Holding it for a count of 7. And blowing it out for 8. Okay, let's try it together. Take a deep breath. 4. Hold it. And blow it out for a count of 8. One more time. Take a deep breath. Hold it. And blow it out to 8. Okay. They recommended doing it 6 times. What you're also paying attention to is you're wanting to expand your ribs and wanting to drop your focus down into your belly so that you're using your whole core to be able to work the breath. Tidbits about the breath. Okay, so the breath, mouth breathing only goes up into the head rather than the entire system. So you really want to pay attention to breathing through your nose so that it oxygenates the entire system. When we get really heady, just a side thing about people who have racing thoughts, being able to take a deep breath will help them calm that racing thought stuff down. If you ever see someone that's like panicking, go hold their hands, look at them in their eyes, and just say, let's breathe together. And by you being able to squeeze their hands and breathe together, you both will calm down. Go back once. The smile. The smile tells the amygdala. I would not, remember how Dr. Arnett was saying, if I look down, then I'm telling my amygdala I'm not in trouble? The other thing is that if you smile, it also tells the amygdala that you're not in trouble. So, thank you. Delivers nutrition, toxins, released, increases heart rate variability. Okay, so now we're going to move on to perspective. There's our lifeboat. We want to see that the positive side of what we're doing, our perspective, is that these are buildable skills. I like that picture. I don't know what it is about it. So allow me to go back to one of my earlier pieces in my own life. I'm very big on a lot of learning. I love to learn, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk with you, because every time I get ready for one of these trainings, I get to practice all these skills, then I get to pass them on to you, because otherwise you wouldn't believe me. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Learned helplessness. There should be, let's look at the next one. Okay, that should be a video. So this is on Seligman's work while she's getting to it. And we'll skip the ad. That's okay.
Hey, this is going to be an animated book review of the book Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman. Imagine 2 boxes. There's a dog in each box. These dogs get shocked randomly, but one dog can jump out of the box. The other dog is stuck in the box. No matter what he does, he cannot get out of the box. Now we take the 2 same dogs and put them in new boxes and shock them. Do you know what happens? The dog that could get out before learned that he could jump out of the box. The other dog, however, knows that there's nothing he can do, so he just lays down. And this is called learned helplessness. In the dog's mind, there's nothing he can do that will help him out of the situation. And you can see this in people's lives too. When they learn that whatever they do has no outcome of the environment, they just stop trying. So let's take a look at optimists and pessimists. Optimists generally achieve more, they have better health, they live longer, and Dr. Martin Seligman actually found that there is a reduced chance for cancer in optimists. Pessimists, on the other hand, give up more frequently, are more prone to depression, and have a mindset that they hate life. In fact, pessimists are more likely to get ill after a bad event because there are hormones that connect the mindset of the person to their immune system, and a negative mindset can cause a negative immune system. And to find out what causes pessimism, we look at someone's explanatory style. And this is how they explain a situation when something goes wrong, when there is an adversity, when something bad happens. A pessimist would say, oh, I'm never going to get this. It's always my fault. I'm just stupid. I'm just bad at it. To where an optimist would say, well, one day, eventually I'll learn how to do it. Maybe it wasn't the right time. I'll learn next time. It was definitely their fault. The thing that separates these is that pessimists rely on permanent, pervasive, and personal statements. It is permanent because they believe that it will happen forever. It is pervasive because they believe that it is a trait. It is personal because they believe it's all their fault and the environment had nothing to do with it. An optimist, on the other hand, always keeps an open mind and says that maybe one day they'll get it. They're not pervasive. They say maybe it's a situation and they're not personal. They might realize that it's the environment that's causing the failure. There's also a quote in this book that I really like. It is, people who believe themselves stupid rather than uneducated don't take action to improve their mind. And that is, some cultures believe that when you're growing up, stupid is a characteristic trait that cannot be changed. A culture raising children that think something they do is from bad character, something that is permanent, won't ever try to change it. He also says that a person who believes they can change their thinking will, because changing your thinking is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think you can, you will. And you need to find out. There were a few studies that Martin Seligman found in this book that actually show that pessimists see the world more like it is, and optimists see it as better than it is. He says that the best thing you can say about a pessimist is that his fears are founded. You should aim for balance. Let's take an accountant, for example. What if they overlook and they say, oh, we'll have enough money for this month? They're being overly optimistic, and it may cause a lot of trouble. Or gambling, for example. Dr. Seligman also found that he could predict insurance salesmen better than MetLife, the Metropolitan Life insurance company, could. He said that there are 3 things that determine the success of someone. That is aptitude, motivation, and optimism. He said that MetLife only tested for aptitude and motivation. And he said that by testing optimism, he could predict successful insurance salesmen better than MetLife could. I want to say that there is actually a test you can take in this book that you answer, I think it's around 50 questions, and then you add up your scores, and Dr. Seligman rates you on an optimism and pessimism scale. And if you leave a comment below within the next 24 hours of the next animated book review that I should do, and you win, I select you, I will ship the book to your house for free.
We gotta have our ads, it's America. She got a little job here. That's good. The Learned Optimism, and this was a book for Seligman's work for positive psychology. Remember I talked about it yesterday for authentic happiness. And he's reviewing that form that you can fill out, all those different forms. It's well worth the time. So basically, I think we're going to move on if we're able to. Yeah, I'm going to. It's okay. If she's not able to find it, what it is a picture of a shark, and it's lurking, and that's what OM is all about. It's as if we have this constant sense that we're a threat, and our whole goal is to figure out how do we live our lives with this disease, but also we be able to engage in what we want to be doing. What are our values that we want to be able to build for ourselves? Do I want to learn how to be an artist? Do I want to be able to go and do something fantastic, travel, run a marathon, whatever it may be for you? You found it. All right, thank you. So the lurking, so what they noticed in the experiments is that 1/3 of the people did not become learned helpless. They became optimists. So what is it about optimists? Learned optimism is that it's a buildable skill. Next one. So 1/3, basically 2/3 give up. And I said yesterday, if you heard me yesterday, that that's what happens for people that are abused or have their rights violated or are harassed, is that they don't know how to be able to step back and say, stop. So our lifeboat, nature hastens recovery. So nature, anytime that when we go to an appointment that's a stressful appointment, please go for a walk afterwards before you get in the car and you start driving. Getting outside, being able to see trees and the sun and feel that sun beating down on you. Watch out for your sunscreen. The idea that you're able to be with nature. Nature, we are animals. We're social animals. The nature will help us recover. Nope. Consuming more processed foods. We're living in a very fast-paced life, and many of us are eating foods that are processed rather than the vegetables and the fruit and the protein and this sort of thing. So we don't know enough about what's in these processed foods, so please do look at the labels to assess what's actually going on. And the dietary habits, what we want to be feeding our system is enough good food that we can promote the communication with our immune system. Okay, thank you. Bright light, I talked about it yesterday. Giving yourself an hour or so before you're ready to go to sleep. Put your blue light on your iPad or your phone. Put it on a timer. I think you go through settings. I don't know anything about the phone. I just did it with the iPad. But to turn that down so that you're not using up the melatonin in your brain. Because when we have too little of melatonin, then our anxiety level goes up. There's our low intensity exercise, reducing the levels of cortisol, going for a walk. There's our lifeboat, our medical team, and our Coast Guard, and I want us all to be able to sail beyond OM. So in wrapping this all up, go for a walk, think about the heart rate variability and what you are willing to do to increase your own heart rate variability. What kind of breath techniques that would work for you, whether it's the 3 to 9, 4-2-2, taking a deep breath, holding it for a count of 2 and blowing it out for a count of 2. There's all different kinds of breath work. My understanding is that also in the wellness group, that separate building, there is a woman there that's specializing in breath techniques. I think I might go see her. Yes?
I took it earlier today. It's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. All right, we've got a testimonial here. Awesome. Thank you for that.
I think they left, actually.
Oh, they left?
Yeah.
Oh, darn.
They didn't get very many people over there.
I know, it's such competition.
Right.
I was there with 4 beautiful women. Two of them were instructors.
Oh, good. All right. All right, so there we go. Smile, make your amygdala less reactive and enjoy. Remember to keep your team with your scans, and I wish us the best for getting through this.